to be all I wanna be? When will I be good enough to live my life and be free? When will I dance till the morning lights up my day? Well, 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 well.
So, we're here. We're in Topanga Canyon together for the first time for almost 7 years. What went wrong with our relationship, Julie?
I feel ultimately it was a lack of flow in us both. That was it, really. A lack of allowing each other's issues, probably a lack of even knowing most of them, because they were just starting to come up. We were both doing our own work, and I think it's hard to be in a relationship and allow the other one's stuff when you're going through so much yourself. So it was a lack of awareness, a lack of being able to stay still and allow the other one to do whatever they wanted to do without taking it personally.
Absolutely. I love that. I love the word awareness, because that's what I have now that I didn't have when we were together just over 7 years ago. So what is the awareness that's come into your reality?
I mean, first and foremost, it was the awareness of my own pain. That was the first layer, I guess, to know and realise that all the negative thinking about myself was starting to materialise as pain, as real pain. So it was the awareness of my own pain that was the beginning. Because I was very aware of everyone else's, and I wanted for them not to feel it, especially animals, children. So the beginning of my more deep journey was the awareness of my own pain, so that became my main work, was healing myself.
It was. It is.
It still is, yeah.
So this pain that you talk about, where is it in your body?
In my mouth. It's difficult to explain because it's not really in a physical place. It feels like two tubes of twisting energy. If you cut an electrical line, like a big electrical line in the street, and you watched it twisting, that's what it feels like. It's like unleashed chaos, burning, searing pain.
I'm getting the image of a snake. I'm getting the image of these twisting snakes.
Yeah, biting, stinging, twisting, restricting pain.
So where does that come from?
From my interpretation of who I was as a child. So in the end, I just twisted myself up in a state where I wouldn't hurt anyone. But I just twisted myself up to try and cover up my essence. And I don't think this is just me, obviously. This is what a lot of children do. Covered up my essence and kind of just layered it over with thinking, just overthinking, analysing the exterior. What have I got to do to keep the peace? So my own essence was just in a box.
It was in a box.
Yeah.
And what does that box look like? Can you show me?
Well, it was underground.
Show us.
I mean, it isn't underground now. Now it's quite a beautiful box that I can open and shut at my own disposal.
Yeah.
But when I first found it, it was underground, metaphorically.
No, underground.
Yeah.
An underground box.
It was dark and damaged
No.
and twisting
No.
and painful and
What was in the underground box? Because
a diamond.
yeah.
A little diamond, but a lot of muck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of trauma, a lot of darkness.
Yeah. Great. Well, you know I'm a fan of darkness. You know I'm a fan of the truth.
I do.
And you know I'm a fan of beauty.
Yes.
And what I see in front of me is great beauty. I see great beauty. And I wonder why life is as it is. Can you answer that question?
I guess it sounds a little bit out of a textbook, but I guess to ultimately realise ourselves and our essence, we have to go into the opposite and to close that down, The universe is a story of opposites, of light and dark and shadow and brightness, and I have only discovered who I am through facing the darkness and the fear.
Great.
If it hadn't been that bad, if I hadn't been in a box that deep, the light wouldn't have come on, because there was no other way to go, there was no further way down. And the light came on at the darkest point.
Are you believing that there's a certain destiny to your life, Jules Alice Gibbons?
Yes. I would say it feels like I've always been destined to come out of this mud that I thought was my home. And learn to love that fertile soil. And then, it does feel destined. Yeah, it really does.
So I can just hear the wind now. Just as you said that, just as you were talking, the wind was blowing and there was a beautiful note outside and the grass was waving and moving. What is your movement, Jules Alice Gibbons?
My movement is that you're doing. It comes out of feeling so frozen inside somehow. It's these opposites, but my ultimate essential movement is flow. And I think that I've discovered that through feeling so frozen and petrified. So again, there's your destiny, In order to come into flow, I had to feel so trapped. So it's a message of acceptance, I suppose, in that now I accept everything happened for a reason.
So I take an out breath when you say that. I take an out breath because it allows me some feeling of letting go and some feeling of peace, which I'm endeavouring to access within myself around the world by hearing brilliant stories such as yours. Would you be prepared to share a little of your beauty? The diamond in the box.
How I found the diamond.
Yes.
I grew up in quite I'd say a harsh environment. I lived in a very loving home, but everybody was busy. Life was about, security and building a career. Even at school, we were all just taught to study and focus on the exterior and who we were going to be. And there was little space for feeling and gentleness. I feel that the diamond has been discovered by a long journey of making myself independent enough that I could make those decisions for myself. Yes, there was a fear of going off track and losing everything I had, but my own intuition was forcing me to play and to flow and to enjoy and to return to what I loved. The fear, that sort of conditioning that you'll lose everything, you'll amount to nothing, you'll be on the street, was more, the voice ended up being smaller than the one that said, I don't care actually. So on my journey of independence, I managed to create a business for myself, boom, a home, connections. I was very good at networking, so I managed to create a creative business. So in that structure that was based on the material world, I created my own flow. So I was designing logos and websites and DVDs, and so in the structure I managed to find this massive creation and this flow coming through me. That wasn't enough ultimately. I felt like I want to be free of this structure as well. So ultimately I shut my business down and sold my home and just went freestyle for about 6 years, not working, risking everything, risking my money, my parents' security, to discover the real me. So rather than branding and focusing on other people, it was like, what's my brand? You know, how can I survive based on who I am? And that was the filtering, and then the little diamond facets started to crystallize through a lot of fear and doubt. But I noticed the outside world quite liked that me that was taking care of herself and creating her own beautiful environment, focusing on herself a bit more. And now my whole life work is in continuing that flow and bringing that flow into other people's lives, to create that independence and to allow that essence to come out in people that will provide for them, that natural essence that wants to provide for you. That is your natural connection to the universe, will give back to you. And this was just a miracle to me that this could happen. The more I was me, the more I was taken care of by life. When I left England and travelled to Ibiza, I feel like I went into a shell, like into a bud, shut down, started to crystallise my own thoughts. And over the last year or so, that is where the blossom seems to have come from. The blossom is coming from community, being with people like myself, not being challenged by the outside world. I've found my place in the world, I've found my voice in the world, and now I know it's truly me.
It is. So the butterfly of transformation.
Yeah.
I noticed that you touched your third eye where your bindi is. I noticed that. What this beautiful bindi that you have here and the butterfly of transformation, how do those two things connect together for you, Jules?
I would say that transformation came to me as I started to see through, and that means not seeing with physical eyes, as I started to see through the events and the situations of my life. So I was seeing it more in a third, three or fourth or fifth dimensional way, that this person wasn't blocking me, they were helping me grow. That situation wasn't harming me, it was teaching me the strength of my own spirit. You know, everything is working for us when we start to take enough headspace to see it and sit back a little. So this represents seeing with an inner eye that things aren't flat, things aren't final, things aren't fixed, everything's movable. And everything truly is supporting us, even though that's very hard to see in certain situations.
It is. So, what is supporting you?
My nature, right now. That I can turn within and tune in to my nature, and you can call it higher guidance, your higher self, your essence, I don't know how you choose to use it, but something inside me guides me on how to respond in each moment now. Rather than reacting from a physical victim self, I can turn in and ask, you know, what's this really about? How do I transcend this situation? And then everything supports me in that state, because everything is me. I just feel like I'm learning to fly as a human. I feel like I'm learning to fly.
Like this, Jules.
Yeah.
And where are these wings going to take you?
I don't know. that's part of the process of growing wings, is that you have to let go of the control of knowing and accepting that maybe what you want isn't what you need. You know, and everything that I felt I wanted in my life has turned out to be not what happened. You know, what I needed was the path that I've had. So now, knowing that in hindsight, I can let go more to my process. And well, do I struggle with that? Yes, very much. I like to create and direct my life, but I know now that that has to be a lighter structure. It has to be more fluid, because life will show up, life will show me something better than I can imagine. So I don't know where I'm flying. More and more within, and more into cooperation with others on the planet, more and more into the beauty of the planet, more and more into the light of myself, more and more into freedom.
I see you as someone who can transform themselves and then others' reality. Because what I hear you saying is that there's been a deep and distinct change of your reality.
You hear correct.
Hooray! I got something right then. That's cool. That's really good. It's good that I've got something right, because I did believe that I'd got everything wrong. I did believe that I was inherently bad. I did believe that everything that was happening to me was my fault when I was a young child. And I still believe that now. If I sit here on my knees and say I've healed, I'm lying. Because for me, healing is letting go. It's about an inside-out movement, and that has been very terrifying to let my soul expressions out. From your perspective, what is the greatest soul expression that you could have in this world? What is the ultimate and absolute dream of Jules Alice Gibbons?
I mean, really just that I bring peace. If all I can do everywhere I go is bring a little bit of peace, then that brings me peace, and that will mean everything to me. That's all I need, really.
So quantify the peace. What is it?
You're enjoying, you're receiving, you're... Yeah. It's a feeling.
For you, the ultimate vision for humanity, for the world, what is it?
It's of self-healing, of knowing that nobody's doing anything to you on purpose. It's their own story, it's their own pain, it's their own struggle. If each individual could go into their own essence and then in awareness recognise the other person's pain but stay in their own body, then we would all be liberated from each other, and we'd all realise we're here to serve each other. Awareness is the key. That understanding is the key. That would be beautiful to deliver into schools, to parents, to adults. You know, if that information can go out on a broad scale to the planet, we will liberate relatively quickly. Obviously, the process of becoming aware is extremely scary and challenging, and we kind of don't want to be wrong about who we are. If we've been a victim for so long, how can we possibly suddenly feel safe and loved and cherished? You know, that journey's an inner one, and that's for each and every person to do their work. But that is really what the world needs now, is awareness and a kind of, an ancient information that has always been written about but not known about for us and our most recent descendants. So it's the bringing out of that ancient, always known information that allows for each person to be liberated from their negative self. Because to me, the negative self is just a cocoon waiting for transformation.
Your story is not over. It's just beginning at a deep level. So we want to hear how you connect women around the world, how you connect them. How does this happen? How does this connection of women around the world unfold for you?
This happens on my behalf. I don't really, apart from just being in each day doing what I'm doing, I don't connect everyone. We are connected, and the more strongly I vibrate in my natural self, the more things just come. You know, it's like doorways opening. I'm not connecting anyone, I'm just opening my channel so that I'm more magnetic to like minds. So connecting is more about releasing your disconnect and then seeing who you're really connected to naturally. So the people I work with online and in Ibiza come to me. I don't seek them. That makes me goose pimple. They come. And my work's been all about allowing things to come to me, and yeah, that understanding of what's true to you comes to you. The right people come at the right time. I do also work with men, because men contain feminine energy.
We do? We do.
You're able to flow,
Yes.
just like us.
Yes.
Tune in, just like us.
Yes.
So it's the whole planet awakening to that feminine, flowy power, you know, that intuitive, sacred inner world that we didn't know we had. Man, woman, child.
So you believe that as a man I can be feminine and accepted by men and women and children around the world?
Yes, more and more so. If I look at men, I mean, I'm not only living in Ibiza, but if I look at men, how men are raising children now with such affection and gentleness, that's one of the biggest things that touches me. That men are able to show tears, emotions, vulnerability. To me, that's one of the biggest changes I've seen in where I live anyway. I'm sure it's happening all over the world. Men, when I was being raised, were taught to just go to work, to not show fear, to not show emotion. My father was very an emotional man. And maybe that was apparent in my childhood, but he couldn't really show that to me. He did it in actions, he did it in things he did for me, but he couldn't speak it, he couldn't say the words. And we've been able to go down that road. Now, as I'm an adult, I've been able to talk to him more and open that channel. And I can see the man I thought couldn't speak about how he felt, just instantly shares.
So the opening of that box, that casket for men, can you be party to that opening?
I believe I am, yeah.
So my casket, my box, in your eyes, what's in there?
Many, many jewels, many, many gifts. And I feel the gifts that you're finding in the box now are bringing you more and more joy. And that's the main thing, is that it's not about what we do in the world, it's how much we enjoy it. And I think once you start opening the box and cleaning it off and finding out your real gifts, there is actually pleasure in those gifts as well. And we can be used to feeling struggle and pain and effort and goals and work. But yeah, I see in your box a lot of joy to come.
Yeah, but I want to crush the box. I want to crush the box.
That's okay as well. We'll make
Because
a mosaic.
I'm angry at the box. Why? Why did these things happen to me? But you know what? Every time I do it, I actually give myself that drama, the psychodrama. And I found psychodrama so healing. I believe it to be such a massive healing tool for trauma around the world, that every time I do it, I'm like, oh, for goodness sake. Because underneath the anger at the story are the jewels. The beauty does lie in the awareness and the expression. So,
and the gifts that it's brought you. 'Cause
Yeah.
you wouldn't be sat here now.
No. Absolutely.
So you can smash the box, but also it's why you're here.
Yeah. Yeah. So I relate to what you're saying, because for me, what I find as a man is that the anger is covering the gifts. So it's very easy for me to be angry as a man, because that's very acceptable. But to uncover the fear that lies under the anger, my fear, the shame of being so frightened that I was frozen out of my own reality. I was frozen out of the truth, literally in shock. And that shock is still releasing from my body. Your body, your shock, your cellular memory, what is it saying right now?
I mean, mine's sort of still shocked and petrified in the mouth, obviously, but mine clearly is saying speak.
Hooray!
Speak, move, dance, enjoy, and face the outside world.
So, if I'm coming to Ibiza on an adventure, what can I expect? What is going to happen?
Most people feel liberated in Ibiza, and there are lots of opportunities to physically get liberated with clubs and dancing and all that goes with that, the kind of the external world. But for me, the energy of Ibiza is, I don't know, it's just all about liberation. You seem to feel who you are when you get there.
I mean, I'm scratching my face here, because what I've found is the self-hatred that I have, which is less than it was, comes out in my beard when I'm here. It comes out as this, you're filthy, you're bad, you're dirty. As you know, my story is one of sexual trauma and the healing of sexual trauma. And the automatic place for me to go as a child is that it's my fault. That's an automatic default, my fault.
Mine is the same trauma. Had that happened, had it not happened to me, my life would not be this expansive. So it's like trying to find the gift in it, trying to receive something good from it, and not holding on to it like a hot coal. You know, it's finding someone to work with that can help you release that pain, to work with it in a conscious way, and to help it become a purer version of yourself, really. It's about healing and awareness, because what we tend to do with trauma is we're actually holding on to it. We don't know how to let go of it, and we're holding on to it via thinking it's our fault, I'm so awful, I'm so dirty. So generally part of the process is just becoming aware of that language, aware of the pain, aware of then of who it makes us attracted to. It's just a great big awareness campaign, really,
Hey, I'm loving
of
it.
how you're holding it.
I'm loving it.
And how you can become aware of that and not need to hold on anymore. Many people who've had trauma will hold on to other people all their lives who hurt them, because they feel that pain is who they are. So the journey is in recognizing that pain is not who you are. It's just energy that's stuck in your body.
Yeah, you're doing it. You're doing it for me.
Is it coming out?
Yeah, because what I'm doing with my hand is I'm beating myself up. And it's fascinating because you're catalyzing with your openness, you're catalyzing my openness.
Yeah.
And the awareness that I used to say it before I even knew about my sexual trauma, and I only found out after my father died the truth because it started to defrost. I was so terrified of him. But I'd lived with him for all of my life. Most of my life sounds crazy, but all of my life. So I thought I was going mad, you know, the awareness of releasing my body, of this beating myself up. And I used to say it to my friends, I beat myself up. But I couldn't understand. And the absolute best thing that happened to me was my father's death. Because not only did it show me that I'm connected with him, because I did connect with him on his death, but that there's a reason for everything.
Well,
how do I picture this safe haven?
Well, it's inside you and it's inside me. It's not out there, is it? So the inner vibration that I'm holding now of feeling safe within myself is what helps other people feel safe within them. I'll face people with horrific trauma, but because I feel safe in me, I give them that space to feel their own safety. The safety isn't in me. Their sacred space isn't in me. It's in them. But me becoming more and more spacious inside helps them go deeper than their own fear. So if we can all cultivate that sacred space inside us and not trigger others and react ourselves to others, that's the gift we give to the world, really. The world needs more space.
With trauma, there's a trapped, I'm trapped. And I remember working with a practitioner in the UK years ago, Mark Lambert. He said to me, when I said the word trapped, he said, David, you really need to work with Annie, psychotherapist, my wife. And I spent years working with Annie, and Mark was very intuitive, is very intuitive, and could hear the word trapped, because as a child, I'm trapped. I'm in that home. Things are not going, they're going bad. I can't escape. So the space that you talk about, the inner space, being able to provide that for individuals that have sexual trauma is amazing for me, and creating a safe space outwardly and inwardly, and giving the power back. What I hear you say is that you're giving the power back that maybe was not lost, because ultimately, for me, I'll speak for me, the journey around the world is to understand what love is, to see that I was safe in the danger. And working with Dick Overly, as I have, and training with him, has made me realize that inherently I am shame. I am shame in the fact that that's why I'm here, and I wish, and we wish as an organization of WEN to be the breaking of this shame. Sexual trauma is my story, but there's many forms of trauma around the world. That's what I've seen as I've traveled. I'm like, whoa, and it's taken me out of the shell, the box of protection, the shell, and breaking out and going, you know what? There is a movement around the world. There is a new way forward. There's a light, there's a truth, and there's a way. And it's different for everyone. Independent, non-profit, not associated or attached with anyone. Talk into this space, Jules, and how it works, because I want to know, and we want to know how this works. How does it work?
Well, a lot of my work is one-to-one, and as we talked about, it's creating a sacred space for that person to share and to unfold. And the tools that have come my way to work with are oracle cards. The training that I went on about 8 or 9 years ago, I think, was in how to realize that I was an oracle and that I could read information, that I have knowledge flowing through me. And these are all goddess cards, because my current kind of flow into life is, or my own healing is healing the feminine side of me, the feminine, gentle, flowing side of me. So I work with goddess cards for myself and others to heal that aspect of people. The way they work, I don't know, they appear to come to life to me when I look at them. So I shuffle the cards. You've probably seen a tarot reader or gypsy shuffling the cards, and then I lay them out in various formations. This one, for example, is a person's past, present and future. And then I lift the cards, and the cards, they don't speak to me, I don't hear anything, but they kind of tell me a story. I can feel the story within the card. I literally And this is what I was taught to do, just trust what I see or what I feel or what I can sense inside. I just say what I see and feel, and then literally I seem to be able to work with that person's inner world. But what this work does for me and others, it opens up this inner world and this inner language, this inner guidance that flows through all of us. There's an inner world within all of us, just like a computer that has all this inner coding, and the internet that has all this realm that we can ask questions of, and it comes back miraculously with an answer. That's how I feel we are. We are, inside us is like a Google. And as a child I'd say, well, how can God answer everybody's prayer at the same time all over the world? How can everyone be communing with that God?
Yeah,
well, now we
question.
see Google in action.
We
I
do.
think it becomes a bit clearer that when God isn't a fixed person living on a cloud, that actually it's consciousness, this divine intelligence. It can be doing all things at all times, and it is. It's flowing sap through the trees, making everything happen, and we, for some reason as humans, feel that that's got nothing to do with us, that nature is some lower being and we're somehow the king of that. But we're not. We are joined, we're one, and the same divine information flows through us.
Yeah, that's music to my ears, because I did believe in the man on the white cloud, and I shared that in Australia when I was with Sister Brigitte Sipa. But the child within me is why didn't God come and save me? But I understand differently now, because I understand energy and I understand nature and I understand the flow, and you're explaining it to me in a way that resonates with me, that makes sense. And the trust that you have with the cards and the way that you work with energy and the magic of life, it lies within the space between us. Now, if you're raging at me and you're beating me or you're punching me or raping me or shouting at me, I don't see God as a child. I see an angry, furious parent or caregiver or aunt or uncle or someone, and I'm like, why? And I really believe it's about asking that question. I really do. It's about why trauma and why life. So from your perspective, why trauma and why
all
life?
it is a disconnect from all that is. So over generations, certain people have become disconnected from what we're talking about here. They've taken that disconnect personally. Someone's done this to me or that to me. So they, in a way, have cut themselves off from all that is, if you want to call that God, Goddess, the Tao, whatever the name is you want to use. It's just disconnect. In Spanish, the word sin means without, and to me that just means without life, without God. You've become sin, you've been cut off from all that is, and until you start to believe that you are loved and cherished by all that is, maybe not individually by a certain person right now, because that mirror is showing something more negative, but until you go within and find your connection again, you're always going to be looking at the outside world for love, and that's trauma. Is seeing the outside as confirmation of who you are. It isn't. Until you like what you see, until it's bringing you peace, you have to go inside. Trauma is being without your inner connection. It's having been snapped out of your connection to Source.
I think for me, I can change the states now. You know, it's like the United States of healing. I love the United States. I love Kenya. I love, hopefully we get a chance to travel to Ibiza to see you there as well. But I love the diversity of healing and people in the world. And what I'm able to do now, because of these years of journeying and these years of understanding all the different people and ways of healing and methods and pioneers and practitioners and stories, that they're all making up this magic, and it's breaking down my state so that I don't stay stuck in the anger, and I don't stay stuck
attached
in the excitement, which is part of the fear and the anger. But I see the three states of healing simply. I see anger, fear, and shame in between. And I believe when the shame is broken open, which is our endeavor as an organization, is to break that shame open, then the anger and the fear start to dissipate, and a new harmony arrives in the world, a note of equality, a note of beauty between men and women, where they don't have to touch each other. Because what I noticed was that I came towards you in a way because I've been educated as a child in that is love, to touch. But actually love lies in the space between us, in the note that is harmonious between us. What is the note that is harmonious between us?
It's the allowing of each other's essence, isn't it? Just allowing each other, you know. When you've had trauma such as ours, you can feel violated, and you can lose a sense of your own centre. So with us now, we can both stay in our own centre, and the other one can move as they feel to, and we know therefore that we can't be broken. When you've finally got to your centre, you can't be broken because you don't see things in a physical way anymore.
You are going to face your destiny now and leave a message for the world to leave it a better place.
In there. Is the world in there? I would say 3 words, and they are, and I'll say them to you as well because you're part of the world and to me, that you are beautiful.
I love you.
I love you. And everything loves us. So we're safe.
Yeah. We are. And you see, it's a hard word. Well, it's 3 words. I love you. And then what gets associated with that. So when I was going through the early experiences, what was being fed to me was, I love you. And then also what was being fed to me was the sin, the hatred. So I was getting positive and negative in those sexual trauma experiences. The hatred and the love was coming out, the positive and the negative. I took it into my brain, but what I did was have the beauty of these wonderful people here in this room, Philip and Vanessa and Julie and you, to go, there's a new way forward. The realization that trauma has been and is part of life, but by really telling the truth, we can set ourselves free, all of us. And we have that wisdom. You have it inside, and you're speaking music to my ears, notes that know no bounds, that don't want to be held, that want to be flying, that want to be free, that want to be... And you're just a beautiful person, and there's nothing else that can be said. And
Thank you. As within, so without.
Can we go a little walk in nature?
Yeah.
To be in nature that you speak of, to be with nature.
To connect, yeah. It's easy to feel in nature, isn't it? For those that are ready anyway, for a long time, I remember walking down the road that I was brought up on at about 14 years old and looking at nature and saying to it, you've got nothing to do with me anymore.
No.
I remember saying the words.
Why?
Because I didn't feel it had brought me anything good. I needed to now think and create and travel more on an external journey. I needed to learn and become something. And I cut nature off. I didn't anymore want to walk my dogs. I didn't want to sit under a tree. So there was a time where I shut down to it. But that's because I was going into that phase of life where I was trying to find a way of feeling safe, I suppose, and feeling that open and vulnerable and innocent had caused harm at that point. But in tarot also you see the process of the child becoming like the lion. You know, we have to go from innocent to fierce, and then at some point we have to drop the fierce and become reborn. And that's the journey. Going back into nature for me was frightening, because it was going back into my nature, which I felt harmed by. But now I can be in nature and feel home, because I'm home in myself more.
What about Purdy?
My dog.
And what about Rufus? Purdy and Rufus.
You see a new dog coming into my life because I don't have a Rufus.
I name them, you know that's what I do.
Little Bear.
Bear. What about Little Bear?
They will be there waiting for me, yeah.
So what do animals represent to you?
Unconditional love. They're where I retreat to, really, when I get home with my animals. I'm a softer version of myself, I guess. And I think for a lot of sensitive people, they are that. They're that other being that you can really connect to without feeling judged. Animals are very special to me. And they always have been. As a little girl, always wanted a dog. And finally at 11 I was allowed to choose a puppy. And a beautiful Alsatian called Max came into my life and saved my life, really. He was my buddy, he was my protector and a best friend. We should be honoured to have animals in our lives. Little teachers of unconditional love. I'd love to work with animals in the future to help people. I want to myself work with horses to understand the spirit of the horse and how we can commune with them without words.
Beautiful.
That's what I'd like to
Beautiful.
explore more.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I mean, one of our great friends in the UK, Joanna Wild, she is doing dog whispering, and she's all about the animals. She's all about the animal kingdom. She's all about the freedom that comes, that you're expressing from the unconditional love that we all feel to an extent from animals. But why do we traumatize the animals? Why do we beat them with sticks? Why do we kick them? Why do we make them suffer?
It's just inner suffering, isn't it, of the person? Just trying to express their own pain, sadly, upon animals, other people, children.
So the solution is?
Self-healing.
That's it. It's all about self-healing, isn't it? I mean, truthfully, it's all about going within. It's all about us all making that shift, asking the questions, coming up with the inner answer that you talk about so widely. We're out here in nature where you said, you belonged. So what is it?
Well, it's wild, isn't it? It's what we were. It's what we've trained within ourselves. We've just boxed away our wildness, and the work I do is about returning to that wild nature that just responds in the moment that isn't conditioned by morals and expectations and fear. The animals generally, unless they're very close to humans, and then they'll become conditioned as well, just respond to what they feel. Just like animals will run when there's a tsunami coming, the animals will know half an hour before. We don't know because we're so plugged into our minds, our iPhones, our interconnectedness in that way.
I mean, what are those trees there? What are those beautiful, beautiful trees? What are they speaking to you right now?
I think trees are great teachers about the processes of life. First of all, they're small, they're growing roots, they're finding their way in their territory, whether that be rocky or marshy or whatever. They have to work with the territory, and they have to be in whatever terrain they're in. And then they start to grow quite a delicate, usually, shoot, stalk. Quite often we as humans protect that, don't we, with a plastic container. And then off they go, years and years and years of building a bark, of establishing themselves. The roots go more and more deep to become who they are. I think trees teach us about acceptance, and if things are difficult and they're leaning, then the roots get deeper, and you can use the metaphors in that as many ways as you want. The deeper your roots, the deeper your connection to source, the less life's going to knock you this way and that. Trees don't have a choice in who they are and who they're becoming, and we do. So we can knock our journey, we can criticize our journey, we can resist the terrain that we're in and the atmosphere, but trees just have to get on with it, and they become whatever kind of tree they're meant to be. So I can reflect upon trees for hours and get taught by their message.
Well, let's just reflect on that tree right now. What is the deepest note for you right now from that tree? What is it saying to you in relation to yourself, that tree?
I think it's the bends that it's taking. That particular one is that it's leaning a long way to the left, and if that was a human life, it could be wondering, why am I going this way? This isn't what I imagined for myself. I want to go to the light, but then after a period of time, probably 10 years, it starts leaning to the right.
Oh, the right, sorry. The right.
And then it could again question this, but then eventually it stabilises itself, doesn't it? And I see that with my clients, is that their childhood is that difficult, where's life taking me? Their 20s and 30s are more like, let me get a grip of myself, where am I going to redirect? Maybe going in the opposite direction to the parents or the conditioning. And then eventually coming into a more centred, established space where, you realise that was all necessary to get you to the top. And then to consider what are my fruits? What am I sharing with the world?
You're a practical healing woman. You're not airy-fairy, floaty, but actually you are. There's a duality within you that's really coming together in my eyes, and I respect that duality that comes together. I respect that awareness, and I'm delighted to be here with you in Topanga Canyon. And just on a final note, I just wish you to be.
Thank you. Thank you, David Roy Green. It's been an honour and a pleasure. And may we do it again in the future. Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful.